right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today for the Build and Grow with Real Estate show. Today, I have Kelsey Elliott here joining me as one of our local experts. And I say local experts, it sounds so flippant and not really as big as it is. Kelsey is one of the top agents in the entire state of Pennsylvania. She and her team have really been killing it in the Lehigh Valley. And I'm really excited to have her on today. Kelsey, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Josh.
That's awesome. If you're new to the show, my name's Josh Weidman. I'm a hard money lender here in Central PA. If you're looking for funding, give me a call. If you're looking to list a home or you're looking to invest, Kelsey is the person to talk to. So Kelsey, as I was doing some research and kind of digging into your background and what you're doing, I thought it was a really great fit for the show because not only are you a rock star agent, you're also involved in the investing side of things. And I'm going to back off here. What I would love it if you would just kind of start by just telling us a little bit about you, how you got into real estate, and we can kind of go from there if that works.
All right, cool. I did not start out with real estate on the list. I actually have a background in marketing and B2B sales. Mm-hmm. So heavy marketing, heavy sales, and I did a lot of training. My husband and I were really young and stupid, and we were like, hey, let's start flipping houses. So that's how we got started. We weren't even married yet, and we bought a HUD home. And, that's how I knew I could marry him, though, because we were ripping out a bathroom in July in like 105 degrees. And we could kill each other. So we got that project done.
So you guys actually flipped it yourself.
That's great. That's how we started. And then, it's funny. You get all that experience, right? Now you know how a house works. Now you know how all the process works. And then the next step is, getting the house on the market. And that's when we learned a lot more about real estate.
Well, it's so interesting. I love that you come from a marketing and sales background, because I think a lot of times people think that if they're getting into the real estate business, or they're getting into the car business, or they're getting into any business, right, it's about the product they're selling. But it's not. It's all marketing. It's all sales, because without that foundation, you got nothing. And it really doesn't matter what you're selling if you don't have a client. Like, it doesn't help.
100%. You can have the best product in the world, and if no one knows about it, it's not benefiting anyone. So
that's right.
I'm 100% on board.
Well, when was the first? When did you do your first flip?
Oh my gosh, what was it? Right after the market crash, 2009.
You're brave. Yeah. You're brave. Good for you. That's awesome.
So we were crazy, but
well, okay. So let's start there if we can. All right. Mm-hmm. So you got into real estate. You buy this HUD home. Mm-hmm. You and your now husband rehab the thing. Mm-hmm. Now, my wife is not into rehabbing, and in fact, she would strangle me if I tried to pull her in to paint the house. And but I think it really, by doing the work yourself, what kind of information did you gain? Because I get a lot of calls from new flippers or people that are thinking about getting involved. And what do you think are some of the things, the takeaways from that first flip that you wouldn't trade?
I think it's a great experience for everyone. I even tell people who aren't married yet, go find an old crappy house, right? And then try to fix it with your partner, because you're going to learn a lot more trying to fix something and coordinate all that stuff, just through the process than you would just by dating a person. So, it's a great experience. And, we really learn more about it's not romantic. Okay. It seems romantic when you first get into it. You're like, this is amazing. I'm going to make money. I'm going to make this house look amazing. And then you realize that none of the walls are square. There's plumbing that was done by the previous owner that is definitely not up to code. You'll find like lamp cords up in people's ceilings, where they just do some random, electrical work and things like that. And then you have to learn how to fix it. So I actually, when we were going through it, I hired a contractor and I stayed with him through the process. And I said, you show me how to do this, and I'm gonna keep this with me. So that was a big deal for me, and especially now because part of my job here at DLP is I will go to people's properties that are distressed, that they don't want to put on the market, and part of my job is making sure that I know what work needs to be done, because just like what you guys do, I'm looking at, the resale value, the hold value, or if it's going to be a good rental. And I want to make sure that we're making a good decision by investing our money in it. So I'll do the whole thing. I'll run through and look for, termites and look for basic repairs that I see, or indications of what's going to be a bigger problem. And the experience from working on the houses with my husband 100% has helped with that.
Yeah, it's amazing the things that you start looking for that, the pretty stuff goes in last.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, when you spend 30 grand on a kitchen, it's the least expensive part. All of the stuff that you don't see is the stuff that slams you. And it's not like you can cut corners and instead of putting granite countertops and, put Formica, it's like you can't change out pipes for pipes for something cheaper, Yeah, that's great. That's great. So tell me about what you're doing now. I mean, are most of your sales to investors, or are you just across the board? You help homeowners and buyers and sellers and investors as well?
At this point, I have evolved. When I first started out, they actually had me working under our vice president, Jonathan, and then Hans. I don't know if you've heard of Hans, but he was our very first acquisition person. So they put me with him, which is again, flipping houses is nothing compared to going through properties with Hans, because with the background in construction. So we were going through regular residential properties, commercial. We covered everything, multi-units. It was at DLP. They encourage you to learn more, and they encourage you to understand the whole process. And it's very intense here.
Yeah.
But that's what I like about it. I would have been bored at another job. So
that's great.
I've been here for so long. But so I started out with Jonathan Hans. I was Jonathan's listing associate, so I was helping him with listings and working with clients. He had about 100 at a time.
Oh wow!
So I was doing a lot of phone calls. Yeah, and Hans has done hundreds of acquisitions for us.
That's
and
fantastic.
That went everywhere from locating the property, speaking with the owner, finding out their financial status, and then going over everything, including well and septic. So.
Well, was that for the investment side, or was that more so talking to? Okay, so let me rephrase the question, or phrase it, I guess. There are some homeowners that are looking to sell their house that have some distress in their property, not major stuff, but the difference between putting a few $1,000s into a facelift, it's going to yield tens of thousands of dollars on the sale side. And then there's those houses where you walk in and it's like, nothing's going to stay.
Absolutely.
We're going to keep the frame and everything else goes.
Yep.
What type of client are you more attracted to working with? Or, maybe that's not the right question. More so, I guess I've seen some of your listings and they're gorgeous. They're gorgeous. And, I think you have an open house this weekend.
I do.
Yeah, there we go. The look, I mean, that place looks fantastic,
It's amazing.
And then I see some other stuff where, you've got an investor that you're working with, and, it's a different type of property.
Oh,
so
yeah.
What would you say, what percentage of your business is retail versus not wholesale, but investor side?
Investors. Yeah. It's a mix, because at DLP, we work with investors and residential customers, as well as the commercial side. So I never really have, it's pretty equal is what I'm saying.
Oh, that's great.
We're all pretty balanced. Commercial might be a little bit less just because of what we're dealing with right now with the market.
Yeah.
But as far as that goes, I develop my investors. So like my open house on Saturday, can I tell you the story about this guy?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So his name is Jeff, and I've been working with him for probably about 4 or 5 years. And the culmination of his goals and his work with DLP is this final sale of his residential property. And after that, he's moving to Africa.
Oh man, good for him.
I'm going to tell you the whole story.
Yeah, please. That's great.
So when he started out with DLP, he had a business that he was working on, and it was a lawn care business.
Mm-hmm.
And he worked extremely hard on this business. He worked on marketing. He actually took a lot of the same tactics that DLP uses and applied it to his lawn care business.
Okay.
So he was learning from Don, and then he was taking his money and investing it into our capital funds accounts.
Oh, wow.
So we were growing his money that way. And then on my side, I was assisting him with looking at commercial properties and places where he could house, his fleet and all of his supplies and things like that. So I helped him out on that side. And then eventually he got so successful and he made so much money that he was able to sell his business and then just put his money into DLP capital funds.
Oh, that's great.
Because we have a great return and we have different levels of risk that our investors can choose to apply. Okay.
Yeah.
So basically he can live off of the capital funds at this point.
That's great.
But
That's
going
great.
even further, okay, in the idea of altruism and giving back to the world, Don is a big proponent of this, and he encourages all of us to give back in our own ways, whether it's through church or through, working with nonprofits and things like that. For Jeff, he actually has a relative in Africa, and they were talking about starting this nonprofit organization to help feed these kids in this one area of Africa and provide them with education. There was a need there that he saw. And once he was able to sell his business and get everything shored up with us, he realized that he could sell his home and move his whole family to Africa at this point and still live off of the money that we are providing to him through our returns, right?
Yep.
And then the next step would be my next discussion with him, because we work with nonprofits, which is a big thing for me. And we can also invest money for those nonprofits once they reach a certain point.
That's
so
great.
We would help them grow and then help, provide them with another way to grow their money. So it's literally come full circle.
That's really awesome.
Now I'm selling his last piece of property in the United States.
This is what I think is so cool about this, right? You oftentimes, I don't know if you think this way, but I think most people, myself included, you think, man, if you want to change the world, you have to do this huge thing. Yeah. You got to have billions of dollars and, but the truth is one person doing just one act of kindness or one act of fiduciary, responsibility, it can completely change the world. I mean, here, literally, like this guy is going to Africa to help kids, and education and all that kind of stuff. And it happened because you guys met 4 years ago and he started investing with you. I mean, that's a really big deal. And it's the ripple effects of that go far and wide. And it's really neat. It's really fantastic. Awesome. So I'm guessing that your outlook on real estate isn't pessimistic.
Oh, not at all.
Well, and I've been doing this series, and one of the reasons I wanted to invite you on is because I wanted to. I'm trying to get a beat on people that are on the ground. I get calls every day. I'm looking at the interest rates. I got started in real estate in 2006, and my first 3 flips were going on the market in some prime markets when the whole market collapsed, right? So wow. it was a super eye-opener, and thankfully I stumbled into wholesaling in 2007.
Awesome.
And before I knew that we lost money on these properties, we made 30 grand on a wholesale deal, and it was like, hey, we can do this, but I always have this in the back of my mind, like the collapse is coming, and it's kind of stupid maybe, but I look at things through that spectrum, and I know that I don't have rose-colored glasses, right? And probably the opposite. So I like to hear what other people that are, constantly in the business and get their feedback on what they see in the market, what they're anticipating. Now you're in the Lehigh Valley, which I think has really exploded over the last several years. And we're doing a ton of loans in that area. Tell me a little bit about what you've seen and like what you're forecasting maybe over the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, there are pockets where you're seeing extreme growth,
Mm-hmm.
and then there are pockets where you're seeing slower growth. Now, I'm licensed in both states. I'm licensed in Pennsylvania and New Jersey,
Oh, great.
so I do business on both sides. In terms of the bigger picture,
Mm-hmm.
yes, we are seeing a slowdown right now, and that's going to be that's just going to be a natural transition because of the housing affordability index. We're seeing affordability becoming harder and harder for people to
Yeah.
achieve. Okay. Um, Between the two states where I work, I'm seeing more migration at this point of people from New Jersey moving into Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Um, this is this is something that's always been going on for years. Actually, we've had a ton of New Jersey people, for the past few years coming over here because of the lower taxes
Mm-hmm.
and ability to still commute to their jobs in New Jersey, but not pay that high living cost.
Right.
So that's what I'm seeing on those two sides. And then just narrowing my view, if I'm looking at the Lehigh Valley, I am not seeing anything slow down at this point. Up until the next year and a half, I don't see a slowdown at all.
Mm-hmm.
We do have a decrease in the amount of inventory that we have, and that's going to be one of our biggest struggles.
Yeah.
And I also have a unique insight into that because at DLP, we also have DLP builders. So we build new construction. And part of the issue with new construction was that materials were not being sent. Okay. There was a slowdown with the entire, supply chain there.
Yep.
Now that we're seeing some things loosen up a little bit, we're seeing projects being completed. And we're also seeing people who are being a little bit more flexible and lining up their new construction, knowing that they're going to have to wait a little bit longer to get there. So,
well, have you seen for a while, lumber, steel, copper prices, they were moving all over the place, and you might order something on Monday and by Friday, the price changes, has that kind of leveled off? Do we have some stability in price points at this point?
It leveled off a little bit. It did decrease, but I know you probably saw this too. The prices went right back up again.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess even if the prices are high, if you know what they are, you can account for them, and at least project down. It's like, okay, it makes sense to build, or it doesn't make sense to build, or whatever. But if that uncertainty is really the problem. I mean, my sister right now is, she and her husband have been looking at a large remodel on their primary residence, and they were looking to start this spring. But the prices that they're getting for, from these builders, it takes 3 or 4 months to get a bid because they have got to, backtrack and get all of these prices to the T. And then they're like 30 or 40% higher than they might have been a year and a half ago. And so, I mean, it's really a challenge to anybody doing any kind of construction to forecast, I guess. But yeah. Well, okay. So let's 2 steps back. I keep going down rabbit holes. I'm sorry. We do that a lot here. You mentioned affordability. With the interest rates going up and the lack of inventory and, the some of the appreciation in our currency and, all that kind of stuff that's going on, or inflation, excuse me. I've seen some reports out of Georgia where there are some banks that are offering 50-year fixed rate mortgages in order to make them more affordable. And the monthly payment looks more like a 3% mortgage at 30-year fixed. Do you think that's something that we'll start seeing throughout the country? Or you think that you think that wages will catch up with the costs?
I think that depends on the state that you're in and the legislators. Absolutely. It's all going to come down to that. At this point, I'm not going to put all my eggs in that basket and expect people to start adapting and changing the wages.
Yeah.
But another thing that we do at DLP is we specifically focus on providing affordable housing based on people's wages in the area. We've done this more in the South and the Midwest where we've seen bigger needs for this. But in my perspective, I'm seeing more companies and more organizations who are going to be basically supplying something that's going to more match the needs of the local population and their wages.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, the idea is also to grow those people, right? So with some of the rentals that we do and the housing that we also offer programs where people can get financial education. So, one way to do it is wait, right, and expect your lawmakers to hopefully jump in and help with the wages and affordability. But another thing to do is just make the change yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
really
another
cool.
thing
Well,
that I support.
I'm sorry. Well, and it seems like the lower end of the price point is really where we've seen a ton of appreciation with, I mean, especially rental rates and obviously property values. But as a percentage, if a lower end property goes in value from 85,000 to 135,000, that's a big jump as a percentage. But on a dollar amount, it's not huge, especially when the rents go from, 850 to 1,500.
Yep.
That's got a heck of a lot more impact on that tenant, on that lower end tenant than a $500 increase in a $2,500 rental. It's just a different dynamic. So you're saying the best way there is to kind of grow the tenant.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Yeah. That's awesome.
We have elite tenant programs at GLP.
Okay.
And that's part of what we do is we work with our tenants, we grow them, we help them increase their credit and learn about financing. We also connect them with lenders that we use.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've done this, with many of them. Is the next step is we grow them in order to have them purchase a property. And part of the offer of having an elite tenant is that we also offer them the option to opt out of their leases early. Which is something that not a lot of people do, but we recognize that we want these people to grow with us.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not going to try to keep them where they are. We want them to grow and make more money and then be successful too. So.
That's really great. Okay. So we talked a little bit about tenants and retail and all that stuff. I want to go back to your investors.
Sure.
Let's say I wanted to invest with you, or I was looking for my first real estate investment. I called you up and I said, "Hey, Kelsey, tell me a little about your program. How does this work? If I wanted to get started with you, what would I do? How's that work?"
So that's actually really simple. We do work with some of the largest investors in the Lehigh Valley.
Mm-hmm.
We also offer the hard money loans and work with capital. So there's a beautiful synergy that happens here, right? Because we have these investors who are already local.
Mm-hmm.
We have the funding here. And then we have a lot of off-market deals that we can offer these investors or these first timers if they want to get into it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we provide the education to them as well. If you want to, first-time investors, right? You're trying to talk to them about cap rates and, NOI. Like you're going to throw out these terms. They're not going to know what that is.
Right.
At the end of the day, you kind of have to walk them through all that and show them how that's going to benefit them and then where you want to take them, right?
Yep.
We're not just going to buy one property at this point, right? That's not why I'm here, and that's not why you're here.
That's exactly right. And that's the most dangerous place to be as a real estate investor is one rental property, right? Yeah. I mean, okay. All right. So are most of the investors that work with you, are they looking to flip houses? Or are they looking to build a rental portfolio, or what's their end game most of the time?
So that's a pretty unique, again, we offer unique angles for people.
Sure.
And what we do is we work with investors across the country at this point. We own our own bank at this point. We acquired a bank, and we can offer all kinds of traditional as well as non-traditional financing for these investors. So anywhere from multi-units to, single family homes. I still have investors. I have one guy, that's his bread and butter. He is all about single family homes. He gets a great tenant, he has a great relationship with them. And like, for him, it's more about, the return in terms of like karma and having that good relationship and providing that house for people. So, that's his thing. And I totally encourage it. And I'll run with that if he wants to run with it. But then I also have my multi-unit investors and, they want to take over the world, and we can help them do that too. So,
isn't it funny that, the diversity of people's opinion on what is a quality asset. I mean, this always amazes me. I used to, when I did a lot of wholesaling in Philly, I had a guy who he would not buy anything that he couldn't be all in on at $25,000.
There you go.
Which means that you can imagine what kind of properties he was buying, and did all the work himself, collected all the rents and all that kind of stuff, but he had a niche.
Yeah.
I don't want those type of properties, and then you have others that they just want to house their money in something that's not going to lose value. And so they're buying condos that they don't even cash flow. And it's like, well, it's not my prerogative, but it's interesting. So you've got a little bit of something for anybody or for everybody. You've got kind of a lot of different options out there, depending on what type of thing the investor's looking for.
Mm-hmm. And the biggest thing that I'm focusing on right now is legacy.
Yeah.
Because think about, do you have kids, Josh?
I do. I got 3. Yeah.
Yeah. God bless you. 3. Yeah. How old are they?
Oh man, I got to think. 13, 10, and 7. So we got our hands full.
Yeah, you're running the whole gambit there with the ages. You're going from elementary to like high school almost.
Almost, yeah. How about you?
Yeah, I have 2 boys. My boys are 4 and 5. So.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great age. Listen, my wife and I talk about this all the time. My oldest, he was colicky for 6 months, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is a handful, right? My daughter, she's sleeping through the night in like 2 weeks, right?
There you go.
She lulled us to sleep. By the time the third one comes around, it's like all of a sudden you go from man-to-man to zone defense, and it's a totally different game. You're running out of hands, and it's been chaos for 7 years. So anyway, but that's great. That's great. So I'm sorry, you're talking legacy.
Oh yeah. So legacy. And then I have a funny story about my older one that I got to tell you. You're gonna love it. But legacy is my focus right now, because that's something that I'm seeing in myself, that I want to be able to provide my kids with something that's not just gonna give back rent to them, right? I want to provide them with something that is going to give them money and give them a really strong foundation to maybe start a business. Fund something that they really want to get started. I don't want to keep them in real estate their whole life, right? That's not my goal. So I think that's going to be, that's my new focus right now, is I have developers that I have grown with, and, we'll develop you in terms of real estate and multi-units, and we also provide liquidation services. So this is the next step. I have my investors who are still young with children, and I'm retiring them at this point. My goal is to retire you. I don't want you running to go unclog a toilet at 2 a.m, when you have a baby at home, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So that's the next step. We retire you, we get your money into the capital funds, and then we do a tenancy in common. Okay. So we take our investors' money and pool it. And that gives us the ability to, roll up these existing apartment complexes and developments. And we've done very successfully across the country and out west. And, that's the goal. Is I'm going to take you, I'm going to put you into a tenancy in common with other like-minded individuals. I'm going to provide you with money that you can either keep in this fund for years, or money that you can access every month, really, if you need to.
Right.
And at that point, that's all going to be going to your children as well.
Well, at that point, you can take your family and move to Africa and start a nonprofit and change the world. That's amazing.
There you go. Yeah, that's awesome.
Tell me about your son. So
the pandemic, when we had the shutdown in Pennsylvania, you were there for that. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know exactly.
So the governor wouldn't allow us to really work. And, I was mailing my camera out to people and then like FaceTiming them. And I'm like yelling at the wife to go stand at the other end of the room to go get a better picture. And it was wild. But, the schools were shut down. So in the middle of all of this, I had my 2 guys with me the whole time. And it's funny because by the time they were able to go back to school, my son started kindergarten this year. They had toured homes. They had walked properties. They had looked at investment and distressed properties with me. And I had them talking to people when I was with them. I said, these are your clients too now. You're part of the team. So I was doing all this.
Meanwhile, I'm sorry.
Huh?
I said, meanwhile, he ended the pandemic with 3 listings and 4 properties under
We
contract,
almost
right?
got there. We almost got there. I was explaining kindergarten, and I'm like, we're gonna go meet your teacher, like you're gonna have all these new friends here. And he's like, Mommy, I don't need to go to kindergarten. And I was like, oh, so what's your plan? And he's like, well, I just want to make money. So I'm gonna sell houses with you. I'm gonna
That's
just
great.
work with you now.
That's great.
And that was his argument. And he's like, Mommy, you know I can tour a house, right? You've seen it. So it was the funniest conversation with him.
It is so great when you can integrate your kids. I mean, my oldest, every Saturday morning I'd go and tour the rehabs that we had under contract or that were, and I'd throw him in the back and we'd be driving through here. And I have pictures of him walking through a house that has no staircase and, everything's framed out. And I'm showing them to my wife and she's like, what if he falls down that hole? He's not going to fall down the hole. He's fine. No big deal. But it's amazing the things that they take away from that and they remember, good or bad, it's a really great learning experience that you can't duplicate in the classroom for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Kelsey, we're coming up to the end here. Before I know that went really fast, right? I really, really appreciate you being here. If somebody wants to reach out to you and would like to work with you or like get some more information, how would they contact you?
They can Google me. They can call me directly at my cell phone number always.
Okay.
And I'll give you all that information, then you can send out.
That's perfect. It'll pop up here on the video if you're watching. It's popping up here. But anyway, that's great. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Give Kelsey a call. I really, really appreciate you being here. This is a great interview. I'm gonna have to have you back in 6 months, and we'll do an update and see if anything's changed. Right?
Absolutely.
So interest rates are going up everywhere, but our rates have not changed. If you're looking for a hard money loan, give me a call. We can underwrite your loan in a few hours, get you approved, and if need be, and the title work's done, we can close in 24 hours or less. Thank you guys so much for being here. We'll be back again soon. Until then, go make some money. Right. Thanks again, Kelsey.
Thanks, Josh.